Good afternoon, everyone. I want to welcome you to Counseling 101. Today we're going to be discussing genograms. I am Pauletta Brown, and I will be your instructor this afternoon. Okay? Today we're going to go over one of the first learning objectives that we'll be working with is understanding the value of genograms in counseling. And then we're going to deconstruct the case study of a client and complete a genogram. And then finally, you'll be able to integrate genograms into your own personal counseling sessions. Before we get started, what I want to do is watch a real short clip of the Jeffersons. Everybody remember the Jeffersons? Yeah? Mm-hmm. All right, good. So we're going to watch a real short clip, and then we'll be able to get started.
In Africa, it's supposed to be a guardian spirit.
Magnificent. An important part of the black heritage. Don't you find that interesting, Mr. Jefferson?
No, I don't. I ain't interested in no heritage of mine past 126th Street.
Really? Well, my family's just the opposite. Can't stop talking about our ancestors. Seems our family tree is cluttered with generals and admirals and barristers, and a bishop who was defrocked for wearing one.
Well, here we are. One Alka-Seltzer and one Molotov cocktail.
Speaking of family, do you mind if I do a little boasting? My wife's family includes the first black doctor in Massachusetts.
Aw, don't be so modest, Tom. What about the 2 senators and governor in your family?
Well, yeah, but it was such a little state.
If George weren't so shy, he could tell about some very distinguished people in our family.
Now, Mama.
Like his great Uncle Daniel. Oh, he was big in railroading.
Mama, he was a Pullman porter.
He was the head porter.
I don't want to hear no more about this ancestor and family pride. Pride is what you are feeling now. Who cares about what's dead and gone?
George, I'm surprised at you. Your father used to talk to me for hours about you being directly descended from the Ashanti tribes.
Well, the Ashanti, I've heard of them. At one time, they were the biggest African nation.
That's right, Mr. Bentley. In fact, George's father said he was a Dagomba. The Dagombas were Ashanti warriors.
Isn't that interesting, George? Maybe you've got some pygmy in you, too.
I told y'all I ain't interested in all that old ancestral jive. As far as I am concerned, the Jefferson ancestry starts here, not over there.
Speaking of over there, I'm late. I'd better get right over to my Russian party while we're still out.
All right. What do you think? Do you think George's response is a common response in the African-American community? What do you think?
My house it is.
It is? Yes? Why do you think so?
Because to confront your past is to be able to move with your future. A lot of times you don't like what went on in your past.
Mm-hmm.
So it's obsolete. It starts with me. You don't want to even address what went on in your past.
Okay. Felicia?
Piggyback off on what she said, you don't want to address what's in your past. Pretty much you scared of your past. You don't want to face it at all.
Okay. Okay. Well, are there any benefits to knowing your family history, your family ancestry, anything like that? Do you think so?
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Why do you say, Connie?
I mean, health reasons is a good reason to know.
I know, and I agree with you. I know every time, the few times that I've gone to the ER, you have to fill out that extensive list. And me being adopted, like I'm really limited as to what I can answer. Like when George Jefferson said, it stops me. Like it starts with me because whatever I have is what I have. I don't know who has anything before me. Anybody else? The benefits of knowing your family tree, ancestry, and things of that nature. Anybody else?
It can help you understand you. Mm-hmm. The reason why you do certain things, the reason why you act certain ways or what have you, just understanding you yourself.
Okay. And one of the things that we're going to talk about today are genograms. And a genogram is like an amplified family tree. And just in a family tree, you'll just have grandma, you'll have your cousins, and so forth. But with a genogram, you have who had cancer. You may have who was in an abusive relationship. All of these things will be listed in the family tree. So a genogram, I want you to get in your head that a genogram is much like a family tree, and it's just a visual representation of the emotion, the emotional, the psychological, the health, all those things, cycles, patterns combined into one. Well, what are genograms? The genogram was developed by Murray Bowen, but it has been adopted by many family therapy approaches as well as disciplines outside of family therapy. So not only Connie mentioned health reasons, but doctors actually use this, especially when trying to determine diseases and sicknesses that may be in a family. Genograms, they chronicle families and major elements over their histories over a minimum of 3 generations. Genograms provide graphic annals of families, family memberships, characteristics, and interpersonal relationships. So a genogram, it goes in depth and it is extremely helpful, especially in dealing with clients who have family history of violence, low self-esteem, a lack of education, any type of mindset, any type of negative cycle that you want to break. You can definitely use it by, you can definitely use genograms by trying to attack whatever that issue is. What I want to do right now is, Nikita has a ball. And so what you're going to do is she's going to start off and she's just going to say one negative pattern that's in her family, and then she's going to throw it to somebody else, and then you're going to say yours, and then we're just going to go around the room. It shouldn't take that long. Okay, so I want you to think, you're thinking about a negative family trait or a family cycle, a family pattern that's in your family, and you just throw it to anyone. And Keita, throw it randomly. Don't listen to Connie, okay?
Rick?
Yep, anytime, right?
Mismanagement of money.
Abuse.
Poverty.
Alcohol.
Depression.
Wow. And so let me ask you this. Do you see these traits, how they have trickled down through your family and now maybe possibly on your children? Connie, because you have children, what about you? Do you see any possible, the initial signs of any of those things on your children?
It's possible, but I mean, I think we tend to, for me, I tend to try to get them away from that.
Mm-hmm.
Like you said, it stopped with me. I'm getting them prepared not to be, in that position.
Okay. Keita, what about you? Yeah.
It stops with me.
Okay. Nikki?
I honestly see the beginning signs
Wow.
of the depression, signs of depression of where it started, because I started at such a young age. So I believe that it does stop with me, but I do see the beginning signs in my children because I waited so late to stop it with me.
Okay. And how do you combat that?
Doing what I need to do.
Mm-hmm.
So that it will stop with me. It has stopped with me, and now to deal with the issues at an early age with my children. Okay. So if we go ahead and deal with the issues now, then we'll know that this won't be a cycle that continues.
Okay, good. Felicia?
The abuse, I think the abuse started with my childhood, but I also think it started with me. Because I was abused, I became an abuser.
Right.
So pretty much I'm breaking that cycle.
Okay, good. And finally, Aisha?
I think because of the experiences that I have had with family members and alcohol, I'm overprotective of my children. My children don't even know family because they drink.
Wow. Okay, that's good. So there are different types of genogram. One that we'll be working on today is the focus genogram. And it is intended to keep the advisor and client centered so that you don't stray off and take into account an inside and out investigation through one hypothetical introduction or for one theme semi-structured question. So for instance, if we were to do a spiritual focused genogram, then the entire time the questions will be centered around the relationship with God or the relationship with any other little g God that might have been worshipped in your family. If it is solution focused, so we know that there's an issue with education, that no one in your family has a high school diploma. So what can we do we see that this is a cycle, what can we do to break the cycle? Cultural, what type of cultural issues, for instance, maybe, women in India, any issues that may be in Indian families in West Indian families, things of that nature. And then finally, sexual, dealing with sexual abuse. It could be dealing with homosexuality, trying to trace it, promiscuity, anything. But these are the different types of focused genograms. And then there are some benefits of using genograms. They clarify complex family and psychological patterns through visual representations. They aid couples in understanding each other's view of intimacy. Imagine being able to do this with your mate and you'll understand why. And this is also kind of tied into the 5 love languages, because I understand what your love language is. If your love language is touch, but I grew up in a family where they didn't touch, and this can come out on a genogram, then I know that that's something that I'm going to need to work on. Okay? If for instance, if my love language is gifts, but yours is something different, you'll know that. And yours, let's say yours isn't gifts, but you never had money because there's been a poverty mindset or a poverty cycle in your genogram that can be displayed, the visual pattern. Do you understand what I'm saying? And so also examine patterns and attitudes toward gender roles, and you can see how women might have been treated in your family. Were they second-class citizens? I know when we go over to Kenya, a lot of times the women are not respected at all. Sometimes women sit in the back. You know, the women are always the ones that are serving, and the men aren't doing anything. The women are cooking, they're cleaning, they're serving, they're doing everything, while the men just sit around. This all can also come out in the genogram. And then finally, it allows individuals to see their challenges in a more extensive setting and work on systemic changes. So what can I do? I see that there are patterns. What can I do to break these patterns? Kind of like what you all were saying about, I know that it's going to stop with me. And so now that it stops with me, it goes beyond just saying that. What am I going to do? Okay? So this is one type of a genogram, something kind of like what we'll be working on today. But pretty much you would go here, and then your parents here, and then as you see, it breaks off into their grandparents. Normally the average genogram just goes 3 generations. Of course it can go past 3 generations, but today we'll probably just get into 3 generations. Okay? Any questions so far? Anybody? Okay. So this is the one that we're going to be working on today. Okay? And you'll notice that the circles are for females and the squares are for the males. That's one way that you can identify the difference between the two. And if you, I'll pass this out now. Everyone take one of these, the symbols. Does everybody have a copy? You want a paper? Yes, thank you. If you look at the symbol sheet, you can see that it is extremely detailed. Okay? You'll notice that they have basic genogram symbols. And as I said, one of the basic genogram symbols is the fact that you have a square for male and a circle for a female. I'm sorry. And also you'll notice that there are family relationships. You'll notice that if it's a marriage, that it's a simple line like that, and connecting the two. You'll notice that they even have something for divorce, how it's a red line but 2 lines. Okay, everybody see that? So it can get very detailed in working on genograms. And then you also it goes so far, even if you look over in the far column under family relationships, the last one, love affairs. Okay, so again, it gets very detailed. And then if we look at emotional relationships, you see violence, you see distrust, emotional connection, love, in love, sexual abuse. Okay, I'm trying to think, jealousy, manipulation, controlling, physical abuse, neglect. So all of these different types of symbols you'll be working with when you are creating a genogram. Now I know it seems extensive, but the more you work on it, the easier it is. Now they do have a program called Genie Pro, which I will pull up in a minute towards the end of the lesson. But I personally know that you may not always have access to a computer. But if you can kind of commit some of these to memory, or just have this somewhere when you're having your counseling sessions, you can just whip it out and you can just draw and go as you're asking the questions of your client. So we're going to stop right now, and what I want to do is we're going to do a role play real quick. So Aisha, you will be my role play person. Let me move this over here. so pass me a piece of paper, please. And so one of the first things that you do is, we said that, what is this? The square represents what? Male. Okay? So I'm going to draw a square. And then the circle is the female. What is your mom's name? Patricia. And what is your father's name? Michael. Okay? It's simple. That's all I did. Michael and Patricia. Now, were your parents married? No. Okay, so the first thing that I need to do is I need to look on here, and I need to look where it's under family relationships, and I need to see if what type of line would be for not married. All right, does anyone see it?
For not married?
Yeah, or just living together, or will we consider it just a love affair? What do you think? Was it a love affair, Aisha? What do you think?
I wouldn't call it a love affair.
You wouldn't? What would you call it?
Would it call cohabitation?
Cohabitate, were they living together?
For a bit, yeah.
For a bit? Okay. And so what line is that? Blue? Okay. So what you would do is you would have a blue marker, and what you would do is you would just draw a line. And what kind of line is it? A little slash, right? Okay. So automatically I know that they were not married. Okay. Now, what is your grandparent, your mother's parents' names? Do you know them?
Yeah, Alma
is
her mother.
And your grandfather? You don't know.
I just know his nickname.
You know his nickname? Okay, that's fine. What's his nickname? Pimp. Okay. And that speaks volumes. But we'll deal with that in a minute, okay? What about your grandfather?
Yeah.
Your father, I'm sorry. His father's name?
It's Claude.
Claude? Okay. So we have Claude. Okay, what about your grandmother on your father's side? Ethel. Okay. Were they married?
Yes.
They were married. Okay, that's just a straight line. Pimp and Alma, were they married?
Yeah.
They were married.
Oh, Claude and Ethel ain't got divorced though.
They did get divorced. Okay, and see, that's good to know. And so what we do is we go back and we look at family relationships. Do you see where it says divorce? And so that would be a red line. Okay, with 2 slashes. Okay, you see that? And so one thing that I would, as a counsel, does anyone see anything or can think of any question that they would ask, especially based on we have Michael and Patricia, Pimp and Alma, Claude and Ethel? What would be one question you would want to ask? Anybody? Yes.
Why is his name Pimp?
Why is his name Pimp? Okay. The fact that his name is Pimp, could we make any possible assumptions?
Player.
That he was a player? He was a Rolling Stone? Okay, now do you know of any stories about that?
I do know that he was named Pimp because he wore zoot suits.
He wore zoot suits.
Not necessarily because he was a pimp. He just dressed like one.
And see, now that, and the reason why I brought that up is that's good because sometimes as counselors we can make assumptions if we do not ask questions.
Right.
So we have to kind of pull that information out. Now, what I'm looking at is the fact that, Aisha, that you were married, but now you're divorced. Okay? So now what we can do is we see that there's definitely a connection there. And so this is what we're looking at now. Okay? Okay? And so now we see that she was divorced and Claude and Ethel were divorced. Okay? Now do you know what Claude's father's name was?
No.
Okay. What about Claude's mother? Claude's mother?
Her name was Essie.
Essie. Okay. Do you think do you know if they were married?
I don't know.
Okay. What about Ethel? Do you know anything about Ethel's parents?
Yes.
Okay, what do you know?
Her father's name was Joe Nathan.
Joe Nathan?
Her mother's name was Elma.
Mm-hmm.
They were married.
They were married.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. What about Alma and?
I don't know.
You don't know. Okay. So we'll put a question mark for either one, correct?
For either one.
Okay. What about Pip?
I don't know.
You don't know. Okay. Do you know anyone past that?
Yes.
Who?
On my grandmother's side.
Okay.
Elma's father's name
Mm-hmm.
is John.
Okay. Were they married? Do you know?
Yes, he was married.
Okay.
No, not over there. Over here.
Ethel.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I thought you said Elma. I'm sorry. Okay. John. Okay. And again, this can get very extensive, especially someone who knows a lot about their family. But now I remember in past sessions that you mentioned that the women in your family were very subservient, that they didn't have much of past a 6th grade education. Okay? And so I know one of the things that we're concerned about with you is you getting your high school diploma. Do you see how that could be a possible pattern in your family of the women not being able to go past high school?
Yes.
Or even the 7th grade. And so what we can do is there are also, we can look on here under emotional relationships, and we can see if there's anything that could be related to possibly women who, not so much women, but just the fact of low self-esteem, anything, a lack of education that could possibly be related to that. So we would look under physical or mental illnesses, colors denoting addictions, and then even if you don't see anything, then you could just make a mental note. Because if you're making a mental note, and as we're talking, and I realize that the women that have gone before you, none of them had a high school education, and here you are with 3 girls, and they're on the cusp of getting ready to go into high school. You know that now's the time to break that cycle. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Okay, so do you all see how you can integrate this into counseling? It seems overwhelming, but like I said, the more you do it, the easier it will become. So what I want you to do now is you all pass out a case study, and I want you to read. You'll read it together, and Nikki and Nikita and Connie, you all will be in one group, and Felicia and Aisha, you will be in another. So what you'll do is simply you're going to read it silently, read over it, and then you're going to create a genogram based on what the case study.
One genogram for the group?
Yeah, one genogram for the group. All right, and you'll come together and decide how to do it. Okay?